When I was in the 4th grade, I had a substitute teacher. And one day we were talking about American history. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Ben Franklin, others who contributed to the founding of this country. And I raised my hand. I asked her about the colored people, as we were called, the Negroes. Do we have a history? She said, no, Charles. Negroes were born to serve white people. There was a time in our history where we weren't permitted to read and write. A time in our history where any person caught with a book or reading and write, they were often whipped. But we have come a long way. Collecting is important. I call myself a bibliophile, which I love books. I'm a bibliophile, a book lover. I love to smell old books. I love to feel them. I like to go to the bookstores, get on my knees in antique shops and barns and all the other places. You can always pick them up, and you can always read them when you're lonely, when you're curious. Unfortunately, I guess I'm sort of a dying breed. I hope I'm not.
Charles Leroy Blockson was born in 1933 in the midst of the Great Depression to Annie Parker Blockson and Charles Edward Blockson. The eldest of 8 children, he spent his childhood in Norristown, Pennsylvania.
We had people of all races and colors and creeds on my street. Our parents told us there were certain things that colored a Negro that we would have to endure, because there was, even in Norristown, there were places that we couldn't go. So we had this de facto segregation.
Spurred by his teacher's painful words, Blockson unknowingly began what would become a lifelong journey to unearth, collect, and preserve the history, culture, and contributions of people of African descent.
I went into the Salvation Army stores and Goodwill stores looking for any book that said Negro, colored, African, West Indian, or black. So I started to collect.
The budding historian and collector was also a star athlete in multiple sports, from junior high through his college years at Penn State. Even while playing sports, Blockson always found his way back to books. Later in life, he would turn down an opportunity to play professional football in favor of his collecting.
So wherever I traveled playing sports, where other teammates would go to the parties, I would go to the bookstore, then I would go to the parties. My roommates and teammates wondered, why do you always go to those bookstores? They didn't really know what I was collecting. In my room, my books competed under the bed with my boxing gloves, my footballs, my shot put and discus and all the other stuff. So it was a competition right there between books, athletics, and so forth. I'm glad that the books won out. I didn't have any idea at all that it would extend as far as it has over the years. It was more to pacify my own soul and intellect. And I guess underneath, from a psychological point of view, to prove my teacher wrong. So from a little boy curious going from the Salvation Army to Goodwill stores, my book collection excursion have taken me to many parts of the world. And it's led me to donating my first collection here at Temple University in 1984. The second collection is at Penn State.
The Charles L. Blockson Afro-American Collection is one of our nation's leading research facilities for the study of the history and culture of people of African descent. We have over 700,000 items in the collection, which range from rare books, prints, newspapers, illustrations, pamphlets, music, personal archival collections, a whole host of materials. But these are like some images from Cheney.
Why don't you get a copy of the book? We could just hold it.
And because Mr. Blockson started collecting when he was 9 years old, this is like a one-stop place.
My mother saved everything, all these photographs to the book, luckily. Let me see.
Just about every project I've done, I always come to the collection because everything's here. And on top of that, I just like to pick a book off the shelf to read sometimes.
I have books, the oldest book in the 1500s, and books about poetry, books about children, and all kinds of images to tell our story. In order to tell the whole history, the true history, you must include the pride and prejudice. One of the most important books in the collection was called The Underground Railroad. When I was a little boy, my grandfather would sing a song in the Highway to Heaven, walking up the King's Highway. I said, "Grandpa, what are you singing about?" He said, "I'm singing about the Underground Railroad." He said, "My father, your great-grandfather, escaped on the Underground Railroad, went to Canada. The code word for Canada was heaven." So it came back to me, and I looked in the book and found page 488. It said, "Arrival from Sussex County, Delaware, it's 1858. And the first name, it says Jacob Blockson. So it verified what my grandfather was talking about. His father and his relatives escaped to the Underground Railroad. Later I found they escaped, several of them with Harriet Tubman.
Throughout his career, Charles Blockson has written articles and books about the Underground Railroad. His connection with Harriet Tubman grew even stronger when he was entrusted with several personal items belonging to the abolitionist by her great-grandniece. He donated those items to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture in 2010.
You can see on the back of the card lots of interesting information about where the photo.
I like to bring my students to the collection so that they can see the range of African American materials. Images of African Americans where they were. I want the students to see the text that we're reading within a broader context. Here's this complicated, intricate, interwoven body of material that crosses all kinds of geographic, cultural lines. This is a collection that you could come to and be surprised and make a discovery.
Phyllis Wheatley is one of the epitomes of collecting. She was enslaved and brought to America and sold to a Quaker family in Boston, Massachusetts. She learned to read and write, and she started to write poetry. In 1773, she had the honor of becoming the first woman of African descent to publish a book of poetry. There's only about 6 or 7 known copies of this book. I was in love with her. She haunted me here, haunted me there. Whenever I went to a bookstore, a rare bookstore around the country, someone would beat me to it. So a friend of mine, an old bookseller, sent me the copy of Phyllis Wheatley, and paging through the book, tears came into my eyes when I realized that this book, this young lady who haunted me from bookstore to bookstore, I finally held her in my hand, and I didn't realize until I looked, it's signed by her. It was an autographed copy of Phyllis Wheatley. This book is a cornerstone of American literature as well as African American literature. The Paul Robeson sculpture was created by Antonio Salemi back in 1925. Paul Robeson was internationally known as an actor, singer, scholar. I was drawn to him because I used to listen to his records when I was young. I was able to meet with him 3 times when he was in Philadelphia. I donated a huge collection of Robeson items pertaining to his life here at the collection. The postcards existed from the 1890s up until around the 1970s. They would mock people of African descent. People would go away on vacation and send them back to friends and families.
It's these African Americans, their bodies still exploited and put on display, without consideration or respect for the dignity of human life. And that they would be mass produced and then distributed in such a careless way was very illuminating, because you see the address on the back and you see that someone actually went and bought and sent this. And that really brought that home to me.
The shackles are very emotional. I hesitated in the beginning whether I should even try to preserve them. But nevertheless, they sort of went along with the books and manuscripts that I have pertaining to enslavement. To know that my own ancestors were enslaved. There's a story behind these shackles that is a part of the history. My eyes was always on the positive as well as the negative. This is the negative part of our history. This is the key that inserts into the lock here to open the lock. They made them for the arms and the ankles, and sometimes they had them around the mouth.
For a lot of students, and I think for a lot of Americans, ideas about slavery are so removed from our everyday experiences. And so to look at something and imagine an item like that being worn by another human being is just, it's very sad.
From the shackles, we emerged into writers, judges, preachers, ministers, actors, all kinds of endeavors in life. It gives me strength and determination to carry on.
This collection tells a story of tremendous diversity. There's something to be said not just for the materials that are collected, but just the process of collecting and creating this archive that says this is a sacred project, and that these are important materials. This is a story worth telling. And so you see, African-American culture has been foundational in the development of American society.
Charles Blockson is not only a collector, but an educator, historian, and author, writing articles and books on varied topics, including Black genealogy. He has championed the placement of markers at significant African-American historical locations around Philadelphia, and has become one of the Philadelphia area's most trusted and treasured voices.
We call him a gentle giant.
It's so good to see you.
He's a warrior, too. He encourages everyone to document their histories.
I have to be very careful.
Whenever he walks in the room, people just are in awe of him.
Oh, thank you. You didn't bother me all week, so I'm doing good.
Well, that's why I did, so you would be glad to see me today. Because more than anything else, he's been dedicated and committed to the preservation and dissemination and documentation of African-American history and culture. And he's been consistent with that over the years, even when it wasn't in vogue.
And I can get copies of this, so I can get copies for our classroom libraries at school.
I have a few more at home.
Oh, it's always great. He knows everyone, and if he doesn't know someone, you can never tell because he's just so open with people.
Do you have a copy of Moses yet?
It's impressive, too, because whatever you're working on, he'll just look over and he'll be able to tell you all about whatever you're doing. So he's a really smart man.
Years later, about 20, 30 years later, I met my school teacher, and she apologized. She said she didn't know when she told me Negroes were born to serve white people. She said she was always hurt because this is the way she was taught. She said she's proud of what I was doing as far as our history, so I didn't hold any grudges. It was like I forgave her. The only way to improve ourselves is to understand people of all races, their history, their contribution to this country and to the world. I hope that I have given them to the world something of myself, part of my soul, to whoever would accept it, and that they would also pass it on. I realized my life ambition. I believe that by being a collector, to collect preserve and to disseminate this knowledge. Knowledge belongs to the world, and my experience from books and so forth should be passed on.
Support for this program was provided by Penn State's Office of the Vice Provost for Educational Equity and from viewers like you. Thank you.